All right, you guys, so we're going to be doing our perm wrap. Now, my space is really small here, but I feel like it's a better lighting. Can you guys agree that the lighting looks better than some demos that I've done? Maybe it does, maybe no.
I think so.
I think it does. I'm not sure. Okay. Well, then we'll see how it goes from here. So our hair's sectioned. We're going to start on the very top section. So that's section 1. And I'm going to take out, always I want you to start your perm wrapping on damp hair. And so my section is damp. Make sure there's no hair on my clip, and I'm going to put it down on my SMA. And I'm going to wet the hair a little more. It helps when you're perm wrapping if you wet the hair pretty good. And then I'm going to comb the hair back a little bit here. Our first rod placement is going to be right in the front. Now, the good news is we already know that the length of the section is correct because you guys measured when you were doing your perm sectioning. So that part's good. Now we're going to do the width. So it's like the rod width. So that's this part. And so we need we're calling it a base section now. You guys, I don't know if you remember in our lecture that we had a couple weeks ago that these rod sections or perm sections are called base sections. So we want this section to be the width of the rod. So I'm going to put my rod down to measure it. I'm going to take my tail comb, come behind it, take that section out, and then that's how wide my section should be. You want your lines to be as clean as possible. This first one can be a tiny bit thinner than normal because it has that widow's peak, which you guys experienced when you were doing your sectioning. Okay, so then I'm gonna comb the hair. Oh, whoops, hang on here. I'm in a horrible corner. So I'm going to comb the hair, and I'm going to hold this hair at a 90 degree. Okay? And I want you to be careful. The natural instinct is to do something that we call bunching the hair. So this is what bunching would look like if you brought it really close in together. You want to make sure that you don't bunch the hair because when you do that, you're over directing it from both sides. So we don't want to bunch the hair. So the choice of end wrapping that we're going to be using is we learned it the other day. Can anybody tell me what kind of end wrapping we learned how to do? There was 3 different types. There was bookend, single wrap, and then what's the one we're going to be doing today?
I don't remember what the full name is, but I think it's like double wrap or something.
Yay, very good. It's called a double flat wrap. So the first thing I'm going to do, and the goal is to try to learn how to do this while you're holding the comb in your hand. You're going to pick up one end paper, and then you're going to place it on the bottom. And then you hold it. And if you need to comb it, you can comb it out. And you want the paper to extend a ½ inch past. Can you all see that? You want the end paper to extend about clearly this hair is not even. Okay, then you're gonna get, because it's a double flat wrap, you're gonna get your second paper and you put it on top. There's a lot of maneuvering with your fingers. You're going to spray. You're going to go to the end of the paper to start wrapping at the end of the paper. You start to roll. Pull the hair's taut, and you're gonna roll it in, and it's gonna end up on your base section, and it's gonna be on base.
So are we supposed to roll like up or down?
So that's I'm rolling down. Every one of these is gonna be rolling down.
Okay.
So meaning you roll towards you, not away from you. Does that help everybody?
Yeah, I guess.
You're
gonna
holding it
roll-
90 degrees and you're bringing it towards you.
Can you say that again?
Like you're holding it 90 degrees, but you're bringing it towards you, right?
Well, you're rolling down.
Okay.
Yeah, Miss Alito, I think they're thinking more because like Miss Medrano has them, they're doing their roller sets like rolling upwards rather than
Yes.
rolling down.
So am I saying it right, rolling it down?
Yeah, rolling it down. I think the perms are always going to be rolled down. There,
All the perms you're doing are rolling it down.
Yeah, you won't do any rolling up.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna do this section, and we'll do more. I'm gonna show you what's wrong, a wrong way to do it. So if you take your perm rod, your perm rod, your measurement, if your section's too big, okay, let me put her head down. I don't know if you guys can see that. Can you see how that section would be too big? So watch my rod. I don't know. Can you see that, Miss Martinez? Like, I don't know.
You can, but when you put your finger up it, when you put the rod over it, casts a shadow, so you can't really see it.
Okay, how about that? Can you guys see that that is too wide for this rod? So you're always going to have to manage your section sizes. Okay, another way to measure is, so I put the whole rod down, and then I measured right behind it. And I got my section. Some people like to measure this way, where they put the rod and they just go to meet that section. So both ways are right. You just have to use your rod for the measurement. Okay. So I'm gonna do my next one. Place my end paper on the bottom. You really just want the paper to extend out about a ½ an inch past the hair, but her hair's uneven, so it's kind of odd. Place your paper on top. Try to make them line up pretty evenly. It helps. I like to wet the hair again because that helps with wrapping. Start with the end of the wrap. The ends papers goes into starts wrapping first. I'm holding up at a 90. I roll it down to the base section. And now I have 2 rods in. What we want to look for is just that it's just they're one right behind each other. You don't want to see a lot of gaps in your sections, and you don't want to see where they're crowded if they're too close. Okay? The other thing I want to talk about is the bands. It's going to be really hard for you to see the bands. So one thing is band placement. So if the bands are too tight and they're on the scalp, it will cause breakage. So I'm going to see if you can see this. can you see that the band and the scalp right there? That is wrong. Can everybody see how that's like pulling tight on the scalp? So I'm going to show you, basically the band can sit there, but it can't be that tight on the scalp. You want to try not to put it in the hole of the perm, and I'll explain that to you, of the perm rod. So I don't know if you could see the difference of what that looks like, that it's not tight up against the scalp. The placement of that. Could you guys see the difference in the placement of the band when it was too tight versus not too tight? Yes, no, side, okay, well, yes, we'll continue to work on that. Okay, so I'm gonna do a next one. Any questions that come up, please feel free to ask. You always want to hold that hair at your 90. You're going to place your bottom paper. Some people place it like this. Okay, you need to make sure that paper extends past the ends, a ½ inch. Get your other paper, place it on top. I like to re-wet it at that time. Place your perm rod. Make sure end papers you wrap first. Pull taut. Hold the rod taut. Make sure your rod is not too tight. Your band is not too tight on the scalp. And then you're ready to go to the next one. And notice how, see why I told you it's a good idea to have these open when you get started? All right, so use your rod to get your section. You could do this way too. Want to have nice lines. Place your paper on the bottom. Come extend the end paper a ½ inch over the ends.
Miss Alito,
Yes.
what was the subsection you called it again?
Can you say that again?
What was the name of the subsection?
Base section.
Base section?
Base section.
Okay.
Miss Alito, so for this, you want us standing in front of the client or should we be behind?
You're going to be standing directly in front. Where am I standing?
In front.
Okay. So do exactly as I'm doing in the demo. Well, that one came out. That happens too, just so you know.
I know we're just starting out, but like ideally, how long does it take to roll ahead?
You will find, ideally, we have students that can do it between 45 minutes and 30 minutes. But it takes time. I mean, you're starting, you know, but then it's like, they like fun to challenge yourself to see how fast you can go, you know? Okay, so end papers to the end papers in first, roll, pull taut. Bring the band over and close it. So let me show you what happens if you put the band wrong, also closing the band, right? So let's say I close the band in front of the rod. What will happen is that it will loosen like this. So you have to make sure that you place the band behind the rod, but not too tight on the scalp. Does that make sense? So again, whichever way is going to work best for you, measuring your subsection, or you put your rod down and you section right behind it, that's okay too. And right here, when you're on the top is the time you're going to find you may have to lower your doll head. Okay, so end paper on the bottom. I do a lot of like with my fingers, okay? Hold the paper with your fingers split, close them down, move the next one. So in case you have to comb down your ends, make sure you're 1/2 inch over the ends. I like to wet this. Don't have to oversaturate, just one squirt. And then make sure you roll ends first, end paper first. Okay? That's how we avoid fish hooks. When you hear about fish hooking in perms, start with your end papers. And this will be my last section, my last base section, subsection. On the bottom. Okay, again, do you see how the hair is spread out across the paper? Please make sure that you don't do this. This is bunching. Okay, if you bunch the hair, it will affect the perm. Okay, so you have to make sure that hair is spread out properly on the perm paper. Okay, 1/2 inch past the ends. Comb it down if you need to. Oops. And then when I get that top paper, one paper on the bottom, one paper on top, I'll hit it with the water bottle. And end papers wrap first. Okay, I think what's important here to notice is that the subpartings or the base sections are all consistently apart. There's not big gaps. We don't want to see this. Can you guys understand that that's a gap? That means your subsection's too big. And I'm going to stand in every time on this perm, I'm standing in front of my section and I'm rolling down towards the ground, technically. Even though I'm holding up at a 90, when I put my rod in there, I'm rolling down. When I'm here, I'm in front of my section, rolling down. I'll get to the sides. We're going to start on the front. Anybody have any more questions right now? Okay, I want to talk to you about one thing about the perm rod. All right. So close quarters here. Okay. So the perm rod has this on this side, the side where the band, whoops, my band breaks. You can experience some bands breaking sometimes, and that's a struggle. On this side, okay, where it has these little holes, when you close your band, when you're closing it, it's important, you don't necessarily want it to fall in this gap where your band is, because that is, if it's in the scalp too close, it holds too tight. So your band placement, you want to try to be out of that. But sometimes when you wind it down, it turns out that it still falls in that little area. You can't avoid it. So sometimes you can't avoid it, and I get it, but we hope not. Does that make sense to everybody? That can cause breakage if you put that in the scalp area and it's too tight. Okay, so Ms. Martinez, you can stop the video for right now. Pause it, please. Starting on the side. As you guys recall, we sectioned this and we kept in mind a slight curve in the back, right? A C shaping, we called it. It's minor, it's minor. It's a minor C shaping. I had to re-wet this because I really prefer it to be wet. Okay, now, so you have to think about the head shape is curved. And when you're going to create this section, the same thing, we're going to use the rod for the measurement to get out a few more rods. My bag doesn't want to, okay, there we go. Okay, so we're going to use the rod for the measurement, okay? All right, but we're going to keep in mind that we want to keep a C shaping going on. My poor dog got wet. So has everybody heard of a shape called a trapezoid? So a trapezoid has one end a tiny bit bigger than the other end. So we're going to trapezoid this section a minor amount. So the end is going to be a little bit wider than the front. So I'm going to use my tool for my measurement. And I want my end to be a little bit wider than the front section. And that's going to be for like the first few. So let's see if you guys can see that. If I wind this down, if you can kind of see that in that shape. Can you guys see that it's a little bit tiny? It's minor. It's a tiny bit bigger in the back, and it's a little bit more narrow in the front, because we want to continue the C shaping. So the first few are going to be a tiny bit trapezoid. And also, you will be over-directing your rod a little bit back. Okay, and it's all of these moves are slight. Okay, so I'm gonna come on up here. Some of you that have a really long hair, I want you to start putting the end papers in the middle. Place them in the middle, and you can even place the one on top. You want to wet it and then move it down that hair strand to where it's hanging over the ends. I think that will help you control the hair. Now, when I'm going to be wrapping this one, I'm angling it a little bit, over directed. It's minor. And I'm gonna come in, I'm at my 90. And I'm gonna place that rod. Okay, my next one is going to be a little bit trapezoid. So a tiny bit bigger in the back. Because we're continuing our C shaping. Again, I want to remind you, if the hair is really long, I see you struggling, place the end paper in the middle of the strand. Don't place it at the very end. You won't be able to control it. Put your other paper on top. Wet the hair. And come down the hair strand. My hair's not that long, so it might not be effective. I've got my inch, my ½ inch over the ends. I'm over directing this a little bit like towards the back of the head, but it's minor. It shouldn't look like it's away from the scalp at all, away from the front. It's just because we're dealing with a trapezoid-like shape. Okay. Now I'm going to start leveling this out again. I'm going to do another trapezoid. A little bit wider in the back, a little bit more narrow in the front. Remember, again, if your hair's really long, put your end papers in the middle. Wet them and then bring them down the hair. Notice how I'm still holding the hair at a 45, I mean at a 90, taunt. Felt like I needed to comb that little guy. Come over your ends.
Miss Little, I thought we were doing the end papers sideways. Are
Say
we
that
doing
again. Say
the
that
end
again.
paper? The end paper. So are we
Yeah.
doing it? I see you placing them. I thought we were placing them the long way.
They're long way. I'm placing these long ways.
Oh, sorry, it's just hard to see. But
Okay.
okay.
I'll show you better in the next one, okay? I'm still angling this a little bit away from the face, over directing towards the back, but it's a minor amount. Okay, I want you to kind of see, can you notice that I'm creating like a C shaping? If I wasn't creating that, you would see all of these rods and they would be going downward. But I'm trying to create them so that they look like a C. Could you guys see the difference in that? Yes, no? So if I wasn't creating C shaping, these rods would look like this towards the face. That's not what we want. Okay, so I'll show you a little better, Carlos. I always work with the end papers long ways. I call this long ways. Okay, so I'm going to start to level out my C shaping here a little bit. Still a little bit trapezoid. I'm following the shape of the head. All right, Carlos. This is long. That's sideways. This is the long way. Okay. I'm placing that under. Could you see that time?
Yeah. But do we do that for all? So we do that for all of them, right? But
Every
even if,
single one is long.
so the hair should fit in that, like the hair should fit in here. It shouldn't be
Yes.
longer than that.
Exactly. See, okay, hold on. Let me hear your question. 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 Let me hear your question.
so the hair, you see how like the hair should fit on this. If it's longer, if it's like wider, does that
Yeah.
mean it's not
What
correct, or what is
what do you think it means if it's wider?
um
It means your section's too big. The hair should be slightly within the paper,
okay.
within the sides. Does that make sense? Let me wet this.
Yeah.
Can you see what that looks like, Carlos?
Yeah.
Long ways. Okay? And it should have a little bit of room on each side. And definitely a 1/2 inch on the bottom. That's what it looks like. Okay, I'm gonna over direct this a little bit. Is it break time? Okay, Miss Martinez, we can pause and we can go on break if that's okay with you.
Okay.
All right, everybody, I'll see you back. Then you'll wrap both sides. I'm not gonna wrap this side because I wrapped this side. Then we're gonna start back here on the very top section and you're gonna wrap down to the nape. And then you're gonna come to the corner section. And that's usually an area where students have a lot of questions, so I'll start you on that. And then of course, I'll be here for any questions. So I just wanna make sure that you guys can kind of see how our C shaping is going. Can I get a thumbs up if everybody can see the direction of the rods, the C shaping? It's minor, but again, if we didn't do that, our angles would look like, the rods would go down toward, they would look like this. And that's not what we want. We want to follow the shape of the head. So it looks like I'm gonna be able to fit 2 more rods. I'm gonna try to put this, still a little bit of a trapezoid. Okay, so let's see, Carlos, I want you to take a look. Now this hair is a little bit longer. So I wanna say this one more time because I see you guys struggling that have longer hair. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I wanna make this easy for you, easier. So if the hair's longer, don't try to put it on the ends first, okay? Remember, we come up, this one here, we're gonna angle back towards the back a tiny bit. It's over directed. You wanna place the end paper long ways in the middle, okay? So that you can even have the ends hanging out. Can you guys see that? So now you can control the hair. You may not struggle as much if you do it this way. Then I'm gonna wet it. And can you guys all see that that's long ways? Yes, can I see thumbs? If you can see that, okay. Now, I'm in the middle, the hair's really long, and I'm just gonna come down. My fingers together are moving down past the ends. You wanna make sure you start wrapping paper first. Otherwise, we get fish hooks. Okay, this one had a short hair, and so that's not gonna work. I'm gonna face it towards me so I can get that in there. So again, you can put your papers under this way with your full hand, hold it, come place your end paper on top. Whatever's gonna work the best for you. Come past your ends. Wet the paper. That really helps control the hair. And start your wrap. We're slightly, mind you, towards the back. Keeping that C shaping. And can anybody remember what rod goes here on the bottom? Because we made it smaller, more narrow. Big rod or small rod?
Is it small?
Yep. You got my small rod? Okay, so for that very bottom one, I'm using my shorter rod. And this one I'm gonna wrap right in. Okay, if anybody feels like they need to take a picture or anything, obviously this will be on video. That's good. Okay, I'm gonna come up here to this top section right now. So I'm on the very crown, the right behind the rods that we wrapped. So everybody should still be watching. I'm gonna finish my demo and then we're gonna go back to wrapping. Because some of you are moving on and I wanna show you the next sections. So we're in the, what Miss Knowles called number 4 section. And you're gonna stand in front of it. So I'm behind my doll at this point, and remember everything wraps down. I'm gonna lower my doll head so I'm not busting my arms because I'm working on the top. You always wanna use your stand as a tool for your ergonomics. Comb it out. I'm gonna measure my rod. Measure my rod. This one does not have a band. Okay, so measure your rod. Still want to hold it up at that 90. Get your end papers. If the hair keeps coming out the sides, that could mean your section's too wide, so you really want to be mindful. So if this, see how I have how much I'm holding, how much ends are left over, and then the paper goes over my ends a half of an inch at least. Holding it up at a 90, keep it taut, taut. Whoops, sorry about that. My, unfortunately, where you guys have really long hair, I have different layers. So I didn't plan for that. What's the plan for different layers? More papers, more end papers. Who is texting me? Hold on 1 second, please. Okay, so then you're just gonna go to your next one, to your next section. Use your tool for your sectioning. I feel like I'm so popular. I'm not popular. Double flat wrap, we call it. Remember, we're coming down to our base section, which is the rod, width of the rod. We're holding the hair at a 90-degree. Sometimes there's a little space there. I would definitely, that would probably mean my top section's too big, so that's not what we want so much. And you're gonna continue wrapping all the way down to the nape, this whole section. So you're gonna do 4 and 5 next. Does that make sense to everybody? Can I get a thumbs up? You're gonna wrap 1 on the top, 2, 3, the sides, and you're gonna wrap 4, 5 down the back, and then we're gonna go to the other side. Okay, so does everybody understand that you keep wrapping down the back? Thumbs up? Yes? You wrap 4 and 5. Okay, I'm gonna go to the side. Now this section, you kind of have this little corner, and it really confuses everybody at first. Okay, so let me tell you all the places you're going to use the short rods. You're going to use a short rod on the ends of your side sections. So one here and one on the other side. And you're going to use a short rod in this corner, one short rod. Okay? And then you're probably going to use the shorter rods all in the nape, at least the last 3 of the nape. Okay? So in this corner, you want your section to be horizontal. It's an odd looking little triangle that you're gonna wrap, but you're gonna wrap it horizontally. It should almost look the same section as this. So you're just gonna take that section across, horizontal, meaning the same as the floor, parallel to the floor. You should measure it rod size. Okay, it's rod size, no bigger than rod size. So let's see if you guys can see what this one looks like. It's kind of wonky looking. Okay. Can you guys see what that section looks like? It's an odd little triangular section. It's in a corner. It's a tough spot. You want to make it horizontal. So a lot of times people will have a tendency to want to bring it up angled, too angled, but it needs to go straight across. The rod, oh man. All right, my bag broke with my perm rod, so that's a disaster. So I'm opening it. You want the rod to sit straight across, not angled in any weird way. It has to sit horizontally, okay? So I'm just gonna come in with that section. Get your end papers. Still use the same end papers, even though it's a small little amount of hair and it's in a little corner. So shorter rod in that upper corner and wrap it down, hold it same as a 90, wrap it down. It should sit horizontally. Maybe a slight angle. It's gonna sit just like that. Okay, and then you go to your next section. Use your rod for size. And now these sections are just horizontal, straight across. There's no angle and there's no trapezoid or anything. And this one's gonna be a bigger one now. Comb down your ends if they're a little crazy. Make sure you don't bunch the hair. You can wet the paper at this point. And now you're using a bigger rod in that section. And you just come straight in, same angle. Should be straight horizontal. And that's what it's gonna look like. And you're gonna continue the big rods, big rods, big rods, big rods, big rods, big rods, until you get down to the nape. And do you all remember that the nape starts to narrow and get real small? So you use your short, like 3 short rods at the end. Is everybody good? Any questions? Okay, so we're gonna continue wrapping. You can stop the video, Ms. Martinez.
You want me to pause it?
Yeah, you can pause it. I think we're good.